Hey y'all, we want to talk today about how to use stencils in your Bible journaling. And there's a few different topics of conversation here. One, we can use different applicators. Two, we want to talk about different types of stencils. And then thirdly, we want to talk about how to use the different stencils. So I'm going to start out with the different types of stencils. So you can have a plastic stencil, which obviously is going to stand up to work a little bit more. And you also have cardboard or tagboard pencils. So, two different kinds. This one is going to last you longer. This one is going to wear out at some point. But it's an option, okay? We also have lots of number stencils. So these are great if you are needing to put some text in your Bible. These, I don't even know where these came from. These are dollar store stencils. They're pretty thin. This one is like Hobby Lobby. This is a really good way to add text with like a pen or a pencil. And this is one that I made, and I use it to put the numbers on the front of my journals. So I like to number my journals so they're in order. Also, although these aren't text or numerals, I have this one that I made that I use for drawing the lines that help me line my text up when I am doing my stenciling. Okay. You also have backgrounds and textures. So like Tim Holtz is really good for doing different kinds of textures. These make great backgrounds. These are just a Walmart stencils. They're super cheap, but they also make a really good background stencil. Okay. And then you also have specific shapes. So I would call these more of a foreground stencil. So you have, obviously this one is an oak leaf. This one I think I got from my mom. She was getting rid of stuff and it's very old, but this is like a specific one that has a specific shape to it. Or I use different sizes of circles for things every now and then. And so I have this large circle template. I also have one that's a little bit smaller. This one, obviously you could use this for like as like the centerpiece of your artwork in your journal. You could use that, or this one is definitely like a specific shape, or it's more of a foreground. So you could do it background stencil behind it, and then this would be your foreground stencil. Okay, so there's those. And then the other thing to talk about would be the difference between, like, you could do store-bought stencils, and you can make your own. So these are notebooks, but you could use a file folder that's a good sturdy tag board. Again, it won't last as long as a plastic one, but you can draw whatever you want and just cut it out with an X-Acto knife, like this one, and create your own stencils. So I've got a few of those, like the numbers, and there's this one, or my one that I use for guiding. So let's talk about different applications. So you can use markers like these. I don't know if these are whatever type of markers that you have. So like, for example, you could trace something and then fill it in with a marker. You could go straight in with the marker like this and do it like this, which is actually quite easy to do. And I suppose if you have a watercolor marker, you could fill in the outside and then pull water in the middle of it and let it pool and flow. But markers are one option for you. Another thing you can use are different paints. So these are acrylic paints. These are a good option. And you can use watercolors as well. These are gouache. So it's got the combination of like an acrylic opaqueness if you use it heavily, or if you water it down, it's more like a watercolor. So I like gouache because they can kind of fill both purposes. So I kind of picked a yellow-green color palette today to work from. Let's talk applicators. So you can use different things. For example, you can use these palette knives or a credit card, and you can scrape paint over your stencil. Let me grab a different one. So you could scrape paint over the stencil. Okay, that's one way to do it. And then you also can use, let's see, a paintbrush. Do I even have a paintbrush? I brought, this one is like for house painting or some other thing, but it's got this little fuzz to it. This would be really nice to use to apply paint, or you could use a light toothbrush to do that, or a light paintbrush. I know I have one around somewhere. And then the other thing that you can use, I'll use my arm, is a baby wipe. So like this one already had, I used this baby wipe to just clean off one of my palette knives so that it still has wet paint on it. And I can go through this just like so, and it creates this texture on the page. Okay, and I can use it to wipe it off at the same time. So baby wipes are a great way to be able to apply paint on your stencils. Okay, so those are kind of the main things for application. Then let's talk about how to use our stencils. One of the first things that you can do in using your stencils is very simply just to trace and color in. So let's say I want to make an oak leaf, and it's easy peasy. This, of course, is stuff that you do in grade school, and then you can color that in with either paint or markers. Okay, so tracing and coloring in. You can also paint directly on. So let me see, I have a little color palette here. You could use something like this, but I'm going to actually use just a piece of plastic, and I'm going to pop a little paint on here. Not very much. I have a jar of water to keep everything clean if I want to, and I'm going to use this guy here, add a little water to it to make sure that it's loose. I want to actually try to keep this maybe as dry as possible, so you want to dab off as much paint as you can. Okay, and then you can just go in and swipe this and do your stenciling this way, or you're painting in a stencil this way. Okay, and you want to be careful that you're going maybe from the outside in, because what happens is if you're going from the inside out, you're pushing that paint underneath the stencil. That's one of the things to be careful about when using a stencil. Okay, so whether you're using something like that, or let's see, I'll use a little bit of green. And let's try the toothbrush. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of wetness from there and use a toothbrush instead. So this also works. Maybe not quite as well, but look at the great texture that you can get from this little bit of bristle from your brush. So you can experiment. You know, the fun thing about using stuff like this is you can do a whole lot of experimenting, and like that's just part of the joy, and you'll discover new things. And so there we go with a different sort of paintbrush. Okay, so you can paint directly onto your stencil. Now the other thing that you can do, because you have all this leftover paint that's on it, you can turn around and flip it over and press it down to create like the opposite, the reverse mirror image, or the outside image. And maybe spray this with a wee bit of water to activate those paints again, or you might paint on the outside of it and then lay that color down on your page. Okay, so you end up with the reverse of your stencil. All right, and then feel free to wipe them off with a paper towel or baby wipe or a washcloth, and that will help keep them clean. Your acrylics will stick to your stencils. Your watercolors will wash right off. And I have some where, for example, on this one, the acrylic is just stuck on there, and that's okay. That's not hurting anything. You can still use it just fine. Okay. All right. And then let's see. Talking about this one, I'm going to move this over a little bit. You can create kind of a stained glass effect. I'll use this one. So I'll kind of demonstrate the scraping method. So you can get some paint on a palette knife and just scrape it across. And this one is a little bit thicker, and that's probably okay. Again, we've got to be careful about getting things underneath the edges of the stencil. And this takes a little bit of experimentation too. But in any case, you can see how you can create this pattern. And once you have the pattern down, you can go back in and trace in between all of these lines with a dark color, and it will give you this stained glass effect on your stencil. So whether you're using a palette knife, you can use a credit card. This might actually be a little bit easier to use. it just gets hard to do. In this particular one, it's a little hard to do in the corners, but it's doable. So you can do like a stained glass effect. All right, and that is scraping. And then, and again, we can flip this over and we can see how, okay, maybe we don't. We'll get that wet and paint that on. And again, we get the reverse print of this stencil. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is masking. So one of the things that you can do in your Bible is mask over, which means put something over the top of, mask it, mask your verse, and then you can paint over the top of that. So let me see. I will use a couple different colors, and we'll just put something together here. To show how that works. So I'm going to just use like my finger and a baby wipe. Okay, and I'm going to mask. I'm just going to rub this on and transfer that paint through the holes of this weaving pattern, woven pattern. And I'm going to go all the way around my mask, like so. And I might pick up a different color, kind of blend some of that in there as well. I don't have to go all the way out to, I can just go as far as I want to on my colors, or as far out as I want to there. And then I can turn around and keep going on this page. So we'll do that just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot or extensive at all. You can do as much or as little as you want to. But just kind of pull that color out into the rest of the page. And I might move this over again and pull in that texture some more. Just pull the last of the paint and use it up. Pull it all the way to the edge of the page, and there you go. And I can, again, turn around and just lightly get some more texture on the edges from the reverse side of this stencil. So there's lots of gorgeous texture here. And then when that is all done, you can peel off your mask. Now this is a little bit wet, but it'll be okay. And then you have your verses. And that is how you do a mask with your stencils. So that's it. Different types of stencils, different applicators or applications, and then how to use our stencils. That I do have more ideas in my book, and I'll have that link in the description if you want to take a look. But this is what we have for stencils today and how to use them. Thanks for watching.